What you see here is product that is already 2 times recycled by hand. The raw material is an old blanket made out of used saris. Before this blanket is falling into pieces, the tailoring women in the villages turn it into a Dipdii shirt. Normally we send our old clothes to developing countries, but with this project we turn the flow upside down. The old clothes from the Bangladeshi villages will dress us here and teach us something about sustainability and creativity out of the ordinary. And I strongly believe that what we can learn from Bangladesh is to take the existing resources and apply another layer of craftsmanship, another layer of care, of love, of creativity, and transform an existing resource into something beautiful, a real upcycling. I'm working since 22 years in Bangladesh now, so more than half of my life, and when you're there for a long time you just can't look away from the garment sector and how the textiles are produced that we are wearing most of the time. No matter if they're cheap or expensive, but a lot of textiles are being produced in Bangladesh and they're also having an effect on the villages. We always think, you know, only architects and urban planners and so on are shaping the spaces, but in fact every one of us does in the way we're consuming things, and especially also our clothes, of course. And yeah, it's painful to see in Bangladesh that women have to leave the beautiful villages and have to follow the money in a way and work in the clothes factories in Chittagong or Dhaka, where the conditions are really inhumane. It's just a kind of modern slavery, and that is caused by our way, how we consume and buy our daily goods. And we just thought we have to do something, and then we came together with the NGO Dipshikha, which is my partner since also 22 years, and the women in the village of Udaipur and Birgund, and then also a tailoring master in my hometown, Laufman, and we decided we're gonna make an example how we can produce in a decentralized way a fashion that is fair and that is creating very humane spaces, also beautiful spaces, and also kind of give an example how to achieve a good life quality, not by just consuming more and more resources, but by adding creativity and craftsmanship. So how does this work? So when we think of Bangladesh, we normally think of really cheaply made clothes with some sort of print. But in fact, Bangladesh is really, or was very known for a very rich textile culture. And we want to root our project in this textile culture, that it also becomes an ambassador for that. And the story is this: one woman gets 1 sari per year and a man gets a skirt, and this is very fine cotton. And normally when they're worn out, they're just not thrown away, but kept in multiple layers. And then with a lot of stitches by hand, the women just create these blankets, and then they sleep on those blankets. There's a sack of straw, and then they sleep on these blankets, and then the body kind of has an imprint on the blankets. It peels off the different layers, and then this whole family history is becoming visible. So you would see, this was the sari where I was pregnant with my first daughter, or then maybe the skirt of the husband is, or maybe not the pink one, but then maybe some other textile is coming up, and you remember, that was the year where the water buffalo hit my husband's leg, and it was a really difficult year. And so that the entire family history is kind of embedded in these textiles. And normally, you know, before they are falling apart, people would just take them and cut it in pieces and using for wiping floors or for diapers and so on. And instead of doing this, they're bringing it now to our small village factory and produce this sort of clothes and shirts and jackets and vests for the customers here. And normally, I mean, we're turning the whole thing upside down. Normally we are used to produce our textiles in a very cheap way in different cultures. Then we're exploiting them, we get the goods. Then maybe, I just heard that in Germany, one person buys 60 pieces of clothes a year, and wears it for 1 year, and then they're kind of dumped and sent back to these countries again, where they again destroy local markets and cultures. And instead of this, we're turning it upside down, and we're sending the old clothes of their traditional clothes to us, and in order also to give us a very important message, and that is that we really need to learn to take care of our resources, and instead of buying new things and consuming more resources, we just add another layer of creativity, time, love and craftsmanship in this product, and we create something that is not just very comfortable to wear, but that is also very unique. So every piece is a unique piece, and it's also not replaceable by technologies, because this is also something that is coming up in Bangladesh very soon, that technologies are there to just 3D print our clothes and textiles, and which would be a tremendous disaster for those countries who are really living by making textiles, and none of these countries is really prepared for this scenario. And we wanted to show a completely different example that is really independent, where they can produce this clothes without electricity, even by these foot-driven single machines, and also because the fashion is not linked to any fashion circle that is changing every 3 or 4 months. You have these pieces a lifelong, and you don't have to, it's not getting out of fashion because it never has been in the fashion. Until the beginning of the project, we could support 70 women, so we also produce this kind of interior things, and we also make some fair art as well, where we just try to bring in work to the women, because it's really not easy to employ the women. So far we have a core team that is about 20 women, but we supported altogether already 70 women. And of course we also have a long waiting list of women who want to work with Dipdii Textiles, but the thing where we really lack resources is that we find markets here, that we organize quality management, that we organize trainings and quality control, and more or less also to sell those products. This is the part where we are completely lacking the resources, and we could easily scale up in Bangladesh, but this is kind of tied to the resources that we have here in Europe. So we are not lacking so much tools, because the tools are affordable in Bangladesh, but what we are really lacking is also the personal labor here and the salary here, that we have one part-time person who is really responsible and takes over for finding new ways of getting the product to the customers, because without this part we cannot scale up, and we cannot keep the guarantee for the women to keep their work. And of course this is very much what we want, and we hope for that we can really continue this project. A woman in the village has much more independence than a woman that is working in a factory in Dhaka. For example, the family itself can build their house with literally the dirt beneath their feet, the mud, the bamboo that is growing all around. They have the rice field and the home garden where they provide the food for the family and grow the food. Then they can, they don't have electricity, but they also sort of manage their life without electricity. They have the pumping well. They don't need to buy or pay for water. The children have the most fantastic playground, which is the entire village, and they take care of each other. Also the old members of the family, the grandparents are included in this, and this is all falling apart, this kind of really high social richness or social capital that they have in the village. This part is completely destroyed when the women or the family has to move to Dhaka, because then they have to rent their places. They are depending on landlords, especially the women. They are getting really harassed also by landlords, because they are depending, and then they have to pay for everything, the water, then transportation, of course electricity, so they have a lot of costs. It's also very unhealthy life. If you spend one day in Dhaka, you feel like having smoked 100 cigarettes in the end of the day. It's extremely unhealthy also for kids to be there. They're normally, when the women are working, then they're locked in a small space, they're indoor the entire time. That's why most of the women leave their kids alone back in the village with their parents and see them really very rarely 4 or 5 times a year. So these are really hard conditions, and being able to bring the work to the villages where the women can stay within their social networks and within their independent life, or making it even more independent also financially, that is the most important aim of this project. So we are not trying to provide only work for the women, we are also trying now with this proposal that we hand in, we are also trying to provide also more training in terms of health issues, especially women's health issues, also women's rights. And not just because sometimes in Bangladesh women's rights are very feministic and it's creating fights amongst the families, but we also want to create, inner strength. We also want to work on this part, more the mental strength part. And on top of that, we want to invite the women as well as their husbands and their sons and daughters to take part of a family workshop where the entire family is creating a 6-year plan how to develop and make sure that the family creates kind of stepwise way out of poverty. Like in this workshop where we came together with all the architects, we saw that it's, I felt that I'm at the limit of my architectural tools to really make an impact. And because what's the sense of building more streets, to the rural areas that the goods could be transported faster, and bringing all the electricity, which of course is something good, but this huge infrastructure there, this is kind of a monster project, and I felt like this is not what I can contribute to. But I was thinking, what if we make the fashion production more decentralized, so that people can really stay in their natural habitat in their villages where life works quite well. So that was my thought behind, very much born in architecture, kind of systematic. But then when you go as an architect into textiles, it felt like, it's funny because it felt like designing the object felt quite a bit like doing the architecture also. So when I start, I always look at the local potentials, the local materials, the local techniques that are there from, when I start building. But it was just the same with doing the textiles. And of course, there is huge and beautiful resources in Bangladesh you can really take a lot of advantage of, and can really get a lot of inspiration from.
We watch your presentation or listen to you as designers, of course. So we are interested in the materials you work in, but also, I mean, you told us how you started, but how does one start as a young designer? And now, after having set up your company and it's been running for such a long time, I'm surprised to hear that you still sort of lack resources and that you still need support. Yeah. So first of all, can we help you?
Starting is quite easy, I was thinking, okay, what can I do? And then I thought, okay, I have, my partner is an NGO who's training every year, almost 60 tailoring women or tailors. And in the beginning, almost every NGO is giving training to women as tailors, because somehow that seems to be the only profession that you can do as a woman, which is, either working in the fields as a day laborer or being a tailor. But the village can take only a certain number of tailors. And of course, yes, everyone needs a sari blouse, but this is probably 1 or 2 per year. So it's not that much big of a market. So obviously, kind of NGOs are also training the women to go in the factories in a way. And being also involved in development work and NGO work since 20 years, I felt like, oh, there's actually not what people, when they donate money here, they actually, it's not the aim, to train the factory workers in Dhaka to produce our cheap clothes in a way. So that was kind of something I was also feeling, there's something going wrong. And why can't we just try to involve these women in working in a project where they, there are not that many middlemen, and to profit from this project, and where they can really have a good working condition in the village, and still keep the family intact and together. And for the beginning, you don't need that much money, because the labor costs are in fact not that high. And it's also important in a way, there are so many women who want to take part of this project, so you cannot kind of make an immense difference in labor costs, because then you create a lot of social friction in the village. So we always leave that up to the NGO, to set up the prices and the costs. And then what we committed are that the surplus of the production goes then back as donations for village development or for rural development, so that kind of the whole community can profit from it. But what is difficult for us is the selling part, since we are an architecture office and we just try to do it always aside from the normal work. It's really difficult to find the market for that, and we are just simply not into these things. What we have access to and what we are using is exhibitions. So we were invited, for example, for the Biennale in Venice, which is a great platform. So I was there with architecture before, and then it was again the architecture Biennale. And then I thought, okay, if we do this really huge effort of taking part at the Biennale, then it would be good if somehow some positive outcome, some real impact is coming out of it, not just an advertisement for our studio, but really something that creates some positive impact in Bangladesh. And then we proposed to bring the topic of textiles in the architecture exhibition, which was a bit of a bridge, but our argument was that every person is shaping spaces, not only architects, but everyone is shaping spaces through the way we consume and through the way, especially how our clothes are produced. And often these spaces are so far away that we even don't notice what kind of spatial impact they have. And that's kind of was the link, and that worked. And we kind of made also a crowdfunding campaign along with this exhibition. So we said, because the topic was free space of the Biennale, so I said, okay, just don't look at beautiful objects, also create really free spaces. And if you want to support free space in Bangladesh, like kind of get yourself a shirt, and then you create a free space, a good free space in Bangladesh. And that also was kind of an important impulse to really broaden the people got aware of this project. And we also, since I have a lot of good friends in the architecture scene, we asked several important people, women, to wear this as kind of it girls during the Biennale, where a lot of people are. And then of course you talk about it, you also have this shirt. And so we tried to use the network that we have. And now also after the Biennale, it was of course much easier to find galleries that wanted to see or to show the project. And then we always combine it with a pop-up shop. A project like this also, because I mean, it's my time is voluntary, but Lucía also has to live, so it's also something you have to. It's very clear that the coordination work is a lot to manage. It's like just immense, and this part is very difficult to get it in just by selling pillows and shirts and so on. So all this background work that is a huge especially the marketing things, and this is something where we are lacking resources. And we're having, for example, a fashion show in a quite a prominent spot in Berlin next. It was supposed to be this summer, but next summer, and I'm frightened. I must say I'm frightened. It's completely out of my comfort zone. Things like this you suddenly are confronted with. And for this, for example, it would be super good to get input also from your side, because, it's not a fashion show where we will be the whole architecture scene, from the Dean of Harvard to, I mean, everyone will be there. And it's not like, I don't want to have like the hip model girls just walking a catwalk. It's, the message of the textiles has to come through, and it's probably more like a performance, but it's just not, you know, a métier where I'm familiar with. So these are kind of the challenges that we are facing.
This would have been my next question. Do you cooperate with designers? Do you work with fashion designers to develop your products? And also, do you see the products you produce as fashion? Or do you think there are more like, or do you show them more as pieces of art or of craft?
Yeah, we show them. We decided we go more in the arts line, because kind of fair art. And in the last exhibition, we also had the textiles as kind of paintings on the walls, like the shirts. So you have the big in the back, you see one of the big blankets. We also documented our architecture drawings on them. So there is some art, definitely some art line, but also we say, okay, this shirts, for example, instead of buying, you know, pictures that you can hang on the wall, you better buy a piece of a project, you know, an art project, and that you can also wear. So it's kind of, and since the body is kind of the who shapes these textiles, because, you know, people are lying on this textile, so the body is kind of the vehicle that creates this this kind of colored surfaces. The body is also the vehicle that kind of exhibits this kind of pieces. So for me, that goes well together. It's kind of a wearable art. That's how we decided to frame it. But yes, the designing part, I mean, I'm having a good friend who is a designer and a master tailor. And I also had to learn tailoring, of course. Somehow I'm not really super good at it, but I understand it. And of course, we had for the shirt, we had 3-4 trials. You know, first it was very tailored, and then we saw, you know, it's actually better to have it rough, you know, not too, then, you know, not too, you know, too tailored, because that didn't fit somehow to the style of the textiles. And then, you know, how to create, then we were making really nicely tailored jacket, but then we found, okay, we had problems with custom made things, because like, or with the sizes, because in Bangladesh they do it a lot of, you know, custom made. They're not so used to this kind of confection sizes. And so we thought, okay, why don't we just also go with the way of, you know, wrapping the clothes around you? So we invented the vest that is kind of, you know, has this wrapping of the sari similarity in a way. So there is obviously, there is, we are all involved in the design process, but of course we are open also for the development of new products. That's absolutely possible.
How many people do you train normally?
Normally we have like 15 women, something like this, a number like this, or sometimes also a bit less, but they are also changing, you know, with some are getting married and they're moving away, and so you suddenly have a new team again, and then there are cases that they're really struggling to kind of feed the family, so you get them in again. So that the team is rotating a lot, but it's also nice because through that we can reach more women. So that's good. And the core team right now is 20, but they're also, I mean, they're rotating, and the training is something that takes a lot of time, and then things are happening. You know, we are there two people like cutting every piece. That's the other thing, because every piece is unique. And what we found out, what is really difficult, is that our taste of colors here seems to be completely different, and it's kind of weird. Like, they have an incredible sense of colors in Bangladesh, really amazing color combinations, but I think the moment they feel that this is for the Western market, somehow it makes click, and then the weirdest designs are coming out of it. And that just don't work. It's really, it's like, I think, I mean, I remember when I was playing piano, for example, then if you don't think it works, and suddenly you start thinking, and then the intuitive thing doesn't work anymore, and then you have to relearn it, and it's really difficult. And I have the feeling it's a little bit this kind of feeling, you know, you do it intuitively completely right, but if you try to make it good, if your rationality kicks in, then it doesn't work anymore. So in cutting out the pieces, the shirts, for example, and the pillows and everything, we really, I mean, mostly it's now Lucía has to be there to really cut out with the women. And that's, of course, quite a huge effort to do. We're getting a bit better there, but it's really difficult. And we are always getting surprises when, when they finally come. The biggest surprise was in the beginning. We had a long training there, also like with Veronika with the tailoring master, and then we cut out everything. And then like 2 months later, we got the parcels, and they had printed on top of these textiles. They had printed, with the most crazy block prints on top, because they felt that the clothes need an upgrade. With this torn surfaces is something that will never be able to be sold in Germany. So they needed an upgrade, and they really made wild block prints on top. The whole collection was gone.
Where do you sell them in Germany and or abroad, or do you mainly sell in a local market in Bangladesh?
No, we have an online store. There we sell, and we have the pop-up shops with the galleries, and that's something we have to figure out now. We have to find more spaces and places where we can have it there. But we also, I think what we have is the story behind, and it's very difficult to sell the products without the story, I think. And I think we still have to do just much more, get the story amongst people, that they know this, that it can be just like in a shop and people know a bit the background. Like, I think there's still a lot of work to do.
The carbon footprint of selling abroad was mentioned here in one of the questions, of course. Yes. Is that something you consider?
We think it's a textile that you really wear a long time. It's something that, it's your, I mean, I had my main piece in the Biennale hanging, and then in several exhibitions, I really missed it. It was like, I don't think twice what I'm wearing when I'm giving a lecture talk. I just, I have two shirts, and either one of them I'm always wearing. And that makes it easy, you don't have to think every time, oh, what was I wearing last time? And then in all the online videos, I'm having the same thing on. I don't care about it anymore. It's my shirt, and I'm wearing it, and it's changing also while I'm wearing it, and it's getting different with the colors. And I think it's you create, I mean, it's not like I said it before, it's 60 pieces of clothes normally in Germany that we wear for 1 year. You create a different way of consuming and relationship with your textiles. And I think a textile that is worn for a long time, for many years, and often, then it's also okay to transport it here. But still, we would like to go produce, of course, also for the local markets. But I think this kind of Tira Kata thing is not working in Bangladesh. I remember I was wearing a jacket once when I was in the plane, and then I stepped out, and then one of the cleaning ladies in the airport saw me, and then she was like, Tira Kata Portese, and I said, like, what? She's wearing a kind of a broken cloth, and she found it really disgusting. So I don't think that that really meets the fashion desires in Bangladesh.
But this is exactly sort of the statement that we are making with this project, that this is exactly the competence of fashion designers, that we have an understanding of the market, that we understand the desires of customers. This is really our job, to translate between markets and markets needs and customer needs and the facilities and production. And it's really our job to create products that suit both, like the demands of both sides. Opportunities to get involved during this project, and we're going to help you with that as well. So no worries, you don't have to sign a contract. I'm really happy that I'm sure there's you will get the opportunity to work together. I've seen some local small businesses are using the old blanket concept to make garments and are selling them online, as well as they're doing exhibitions, though they don't use the authentic blankets with many stories as you described, but they use a sort of patched cloths just to get the appearance. But people are still buying these products. But I guess there are many people who will love your products and appreciate these arts. But what steps do you take, or are you thinking to take to describe the stories and authenticity of the products to attract customers and let them inform their value in comparison to those made up concepts or not or unauthentic concepts?
I think that they are kind of also authentic. They're just not torn yet. But I mean, once you would sleep on these blankets, you would get the same surfaces. It's just there, you know, this tradition is there. And I think people really still, I mean, they in the rural areas, they definitely live this tradition. And we also want to keep it alive with this project. Is also one component. In the beginning, we bought the blankets from them, and with the money, they would just buy, you know, this kind of a fleece blankets made in China or whatever, and then we saw, okay, this is not what we intend to do, you know, and then we exchange it with new saris so that they have kind of the raw product, and again, so that they so they see the value in it. And I don't mind. I mean, anyway, I mean, I it's not about minding, because it's a tradition, you know. It's like, of course, it has to be spread as much as possible. And with the torn ones, I think it's just a way of seeing beauty in the non-perfect things. And it's just a switch in perception, and that has to, you know, that needs time, that you see that you see the beauty in this vibrant torn textures. And it's the same with when we have to when we're discussing about fired bricks and mud walls, you know, the perception is just, you know, that the fired brick is more beautiful. And then and for us, the fired brick, you know, you see all the fungus in it, you see how badly it is, the masonry is made, how the cement is kind of coming out through the joints badly and everything. And we see this beautiful mud wall, you know, with this with the aging cracks, and it looks for us that, or for me, meanwhile, it looks much more beautiful than the brick wall. But it's kind of a way of seeing more than probably than of the story, because the story is embedded anyway in the tradition of Bangladesh. I mean, I think everyone knows the story who is from there.
There was one question. Isn't this very warm clothing?
It's super nice to wear. It's surprisingly super nice. It's extremely soft because the cotton is already so soft. And when it's worn, you know, it's like, it's really absolutely nice to wear. It's and that is also what we get as feedback, that it's surprisingly comfortable to wear this thing. The only thing is what you know, it's not a jersey, so, you know, when you get in, you have to be a bit more careful, because we didn't want to have all these zips, because we thought, okay, when they buy the zips in the local markets, it's probably the quality that, you know, there's a source of failure. So we just wanted to have as little possible kind of how to say broken parts as possible. So that's the only thing. When you start going into it, it's a bit uncomfortable, because it's not just so open it and easily going in, but to wear it is really very comfortable.
Which materials are usually in these blankets? Is it like all silk or cotton, or mixture of all sorts? Can you control that?
It's hardly mixture, but most of it is cotton.
And how long does it take to, I don't know, make a blanket?
A blanket that takes, I mean, it's, you know, it's a work that several neighboring and friends women are doing on the street, and then, you know, they're chatting, and then they're making the raws, and that can take several months while men are in the teeth of their meat and make the blankets. And then for getting it torn, we are sleeping sometimes on blankets that are beautiful, but they are not torn yet, so we're taking some home and sleeping on them. It takes also a few months.
Do you give back to the community as well? Or like, what do you give back? I mean, do you pay the ladies per piece? Do you pay them per hour or per day? Or is there anything else you give? Of
course, the payment is one thing, but then also the, you know, building up the confidence. For example, like last time when I was there, it was Durga Puja, and many of the women are Hindus in that area. And like when no one was watching, they loved to dance. You know, we were turning the music on and dancing, and then they're all during Durga Puja are always dancing competitions, and you know, huge stage, several hundred of people watching, and normally it's only the kids who dance, you know, and the men, and I could see that the women were like, you know, really wanting to be on stage, and also, you know, exposing themselves and with the joy and the dancing, but they were just way too shy. But because I'm a foreigner, I can kind of break some boundaries, you know, and I just saw their, you know, and then saw that they really were kind of tempted to do, but too afraid to do it. So I just, you know, we went all on the stage, you know, all of us, and we were dancing in front of everyone. And they were like, for them, it was a huge thing, you know, just to be on stage and to present them and to dance. And particular one is a widow. And as a widow, you're not supposed to have joy, you know, you're not supposed to wear colorful clothes anymore and ornaments. So for her, it was even more extreme, you know, and she's young. So to say, okay, you know, my life hasn't ended and I'm here, and, you know, and I have a job, I have a work. And then we also had a camera team with us, and they were filming. So it was a huge thing for them, you know, just to expose themselves and to celebrate their strength also in front of the entire village. And, you know, through these kind of things, you of course, you create something much more than just the work. And also in the beginning, we thought the work is kind of perfect because they can just get the textile and get it back home and work from home, you know, and take care of the children at the same time and so on. And then we found out that they actually enjoy it so much to meet, you know, have a reason to go out of home and to meet and to talk amongst each other about the problems and situations at home, and to have a real work. It also means, you know, you have a workspace. So now we built their workspace for them, which also means, and it's a building that attracts also a lot of visitors and tourists meanwhile. So that's also, you know, adding to that pride in a way, so that they kind of have an international architecture structure also. So it's like, through these kind of things, we're building them up. And now this year we had planned to make more workshops where we look more in the economic situations for them, also to build up, you know, like funds for healthcare and retirement and so on. But we have to see if we can travel this year there. But it's going step by step. And of course, I mean, if we had more income and we could, you know, sustain the project better, and we already did also when there were times where we had the surplus, then we give it back to the NGO, to Dipshikha, and then it supports the school, for example, or any other projects that are needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.